The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc has done a flip-flop after voting 188 times to keep this government in power. It's the most centralizing and expansionist government in history. They've kept them in power. They voted two more times this fall in a confidence vote, even though they gave nothing to farmers or seniors. Once again, can the Bloc vote with us to end this government that does less for Quebec?
Will the NDP finally break off its costly coalition with the government and call a carbon tax election? Yeah!
I listened carefully to the question of the Leader of the Opposition. We've been through this before. At some point, the chair is going to have to cut questions if we continue to have questions which don't deal with the administration of government. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the very angry housing minister has been up all night trying to dream up some snarky comment in response to the very popular announcement Common Sense Conservatives made yesterday to axe the federal sales tax on homes under $1 million, something that his own advisor, Dr. Mike Moffat, has said is the most bold announcement of any federal party for middle-class home ownership. He took my idea on GST for rental housing. Will he accept this common sense plan to axe the tax?
There's a lot of chatter coming. I can only identify the member from New Westminster Burnaby, but I would warn other members, please, to not take the floor unless recognized by the chair. It's important for question period to happen during the time that it's supposed to happen. The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure, Housing and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, with all the time and energy he spends on me, I'm going to have to send him a check for the time I've been living rent-free in his head. But, I got to tell you, yesterday, make no mistake, the Conservative leader announced he would make multi-billion-dollar cuts to programs that will get homes built in this country. Now, he knows that, and we can agree on that piece. What he doesn't know is his caucus colleagues have been going behind his back, writing me letters, advocating for their communities to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund, because they believe it will get more homes built. My question for the Conservative members of his caucus, will they have the courage to stand up and tell him he's wrong?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's the only rent he hasn't doubled. And nobody else has to tell that member that he's wrong because he told himself. This is what he said about his own Housing Accelerator Fund. Let me quote it. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually go towards the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually directly build homes. And he's right. Since he started forking over these big checks, construction has gone down in the major municipalities that has received it. So will he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the homes?
I ask all members once again, including the member from Hamilton Centre, to please not take the floor. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, there was a time not so long ago when the Conservative leader was actually advocating the government do more to increase density near the services that people need. Infrastructure already exists. There was a time when he was actually advocating to do something to reduce development cost charges to make it cheaper to build homes in this country. There was a time he was advocating the government do something to actually speed up the process of permitting. Now that we've actually moved forward with billions of dollars of investments that are getting homes built, making changes, he's changed his view and says we should do nothing on any of these programs and blames the government for making the investments he once thought was a good idea. We're going to do what it takes to build homes. I wish he'd join us.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's done precisely the opposite. Since he gave Toronto $500 million, that city hall has jacked up development taxes by 40%. No wonder construction is down 20%. That's probably why Dr. Mike Moffat, the minister's housing advisor, said that it's hard to deny that the Housing Accelerator Fund is turning out to be nothing more than a heist of tax dollars flowing from the feds to the municipality. So enough with the heist. Won't he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the home?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I sometimes ask myself where they found this guy. He twists the facts to suit his narrative whenever he wants. It's almost like the Conservative Party, when looking for a new leader, hopped on Temu, typed in far-right Conservative, and then spit this guy out instead. He opposes investments in affordable housing. He borrows lessons from his cousins south of the border when he opposes birth control for women. During the January 6th of Canada, the convoy, he wasn't just telling people to stand by, he was bringing them coffee in the streets. Mr. Speaker, it might be election season in America. We don't need this far right-wing populism here at home.
The Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of leadership contestants, that member must be so uptight and angry because the polling shows that though Canadians want to fire that Prime Minister, the Housing Minister ranks dead last in the polls to replace him. And why wouldn't he? This is the guy who lost track of 1 million people when he was Immigration Minister.
Right.
He ignored warnings from his own department that letting in 200% more people would cause a housing shortage. And his own government spent the last week trashing his entire immigration record. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader asks how arrogance and incompetence can live so comfortably in one man. He manages to show us every single day. Mr. Speaker, let's actually look at the facts. While he's concerned about my polling numbers, I'm concerned about helping people in need. We put billions of dollars on the table to build or repair hundreds of thousands of homes in this country so vulnerable Canadians have a roof over his head. Let's look at his record. The worst level of home building in the last 10 years. And when he had the chance to help the most vulnerable, he simply got 6 units built across the entire country. The only thing he's done to help vulnerable people is show up with a video camera to treat those living without a roof over their head as props, and it's unacceptable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the sum total of the chaos in our immigration system that happened under this government happened while he was the minister. His own subsequent Liberal successor has now denounced him and blamed him and his policies for the housing shortfall we have today. And now as housing minister, since he took office, the number of young people who own a home has gone from 47% down to 26% as he builds bureaucracy to block homes. Why doesn't he realize his failure, accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the home?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. À l'ordre, s'il vous plaît.
Order, please.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has said there's been consensus on immigration for 150 years. That means he's okay with the Chinese head tax. That means he's okay with not letting Jews in after the Second World War. That means, Mr. Speaker, that he's okay, and we know it already. He was in cabinet. He was okay with the barbaric practices snitch line. How does he want to fix things, Mr. Speaker? He wants to use math. Well, the last time he used math, he was the housing minister, and he could barely count to 6.